It all started with the search for the perfect location. I always strive to create content that hooks you from the very first second, searching for places with history, with the right atmosphere. So the shot is perfectly framed, the correct 16:9 aspect ratio, a bit of cold color grading, focus on something ominous in the background. That evening, I broke into an old, abandoned wing of the city hospital. It was supposed to be just another video about urban legends. I was picking out the right tags in my head while walking down a dark corridor, illuminating the way only with a powerful flashlight. I wanted to lean my back against the wall to take a panoramic shot of the room. I felt the cold, damp concrete against my back. I took a step backward, shifting my weight. But the concrete wasn't there. It wasn't a fall into a pit or a chasm. It felt like the moment in an old video game when you accidentally clip out of bounds. My body just fell through solid matter. For a fraction of a second, I was enveloped in absolute, impenetrable darkness, devoid of sounds, smells, and even the sensation of gravity. And then I was thrown hard onto the floor. I hit my knee and palms painfully. The first thing that hit my senses was the smell. A heavy, musty, Swedish stench of an old, damp carpet. It is the smell of basements that haven't been aired out for years, or old hotels where cheap alcohol was spilled on the floor and never properly washed away. I abruptly got to my feet, recoiling from the stench, and looked around. My heart skipped a beat. The hospital was gone. The night was gone. Instead, I was surrounded by something entirely different, something so profoundly wrong that my brain refused to process it in the first few minutes. I stood in the middle of an endless labyrinth of rooms and corridors. Everything around, every wall, every partition, was covered with the same vile, pale yellow wallpaper featuring a faded floral pattern. They looked sick, as if the room itself was suffering from jaundice. Underfoot lay the same stinking, damp, mustard-colored carpet. I took a step, and with a quiet squelch, a muddy liquid seeped out from under the sole of my sneaker. But the worst part was the sound. The ceiling, located at a height of about 3 meters, was laid out with standard office panels. Long fluorescent lights were mounted in them. They burned with a blindingly bright, artificial light that made my eyes ache immediately. And they hummed. It wasn't the quiet buzz of an ordinary light bulb. It was an unbearable, electrical, monotonous hum, bzzz, that vibrated right inside my skull. It felt as though thousands of mechanical bees were trying to drill into my brain from the inside. "Hey!" I shouted, hoping my voice would somehow shatter this silence. But the carpet and wallpaper swallowed my scream instantly. There was no echo at all. My voice sounded pathetic and muffled. I took out my phone. No signal. 0 bars. No internet. But the weirdest thing, the clock was frozen at 23:14. No matter how long I stared at the screen, the minutes didn't change. Time did not exist here. I decided to walk. Staying put felt tantamount to death. I chose a direction and walked forward, trying to keep to the right wall, just as they teach in labyrinth survival guides. But very quickly I realized that logic and geometry don't work here. I could walk down a straight corridor for 15 minutes, turn a corner, and end up in the exact same room I had just left. Or vice versa. A corridor that seemed endless would suddenly end in a blank wall that definitely wasn't there a second ago. Space shifted behind my back. This place was alive and it was playing with me. I don't know how long I wandered. Maybe a few hours. Maybe a few days. My throat was so parched that every breath of air felt like swallowing broken glass. My stomach was cramping from hunger. The yellow color of the walls began to cause nausea and dizziness. The hum of the lamps grew louder and louder. Sometimes it seemed to me that I could hear a whisper hidden within this electrical noise. It was whispering my name. I sat down on the damp floor in one of the spacious rooms, divided by load-bearing columns. My strength was leaving me. I closed my eyes, just wishing for this blinding yellow color to disappear, even for a single moment. And right then I heard it. The sound came from somewhere far away, from the depths of the endless corridors. It didn't belong to this place. It wasn't the electrical hum or the squelching of the wet carpet. It was a heavy, measured footstep. Thump, 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 but it was trailed by another sound. A high-pitched, metallic, scraping noise, like someone dragging rusty rebar across the floor. I froze, afraid to even breathe. The footsteps were getting closer. Suddenly, a voice pierced through the hum of the lamps. But it wasn't the voice of a living person. It sounded like an old, distorted radio broadcast. "Hey, is anyone here? Perfect location." A chill ran down my spine. It was my voice. The creature wandering out there in the yellow labyrinth was repeating my own words, the ones I said right when I fell in here. Only now they sounded mechanical, carrying a creepy echo, as if blaring from the massive, rusty horns of old loudspeakers. Slowly, trying not to make a single sound, I got to my feet. I peeked out from behind the column. At the other end of the long corridor, where the light of the lamps flickered constantly, a silhouette appeared. It was incredibly tall, so tall that its head almost touched the 3-meter ceiling. It was skinny, like a dried-up mummy, with long, disproportionate limbs. Instead of a face, this monstrosity had something massive and metallic, with wires and old, dirty speakers sticking out of it. White noise poured out of them continuously, which suddenly morphed into the piercing, deafening wail of an air raid siren. It noticed me. The siren tore through the space, bouncing off the yellow walls. The creature didn't run. It lunged forward on its long legs, moving in huge leaps like some deformed, overgrown spider. I bolted. Panic completely took over my body. I ran blindly. The squelching of the carpet under my feet merged with the sound of the siren behind my back. I swerved into corridors, flew through empty rooms, smashed my shoulders into walls, tearing off the wallpaper in the process. But the creature wasn't falling behind. Its metallic footsteps were getting closer. Its speakers were now screaming with different voices. Men's, women's, crying children. It was collecting the sounds of those who had been here before me. "Help! Let me out!" It wailed, imitating someone's dying terror. My lungs were on fire. My legs refused to obey. I flew into another doorway and suddenly found myself in a massive hall. This place was different from anything I had seen so far. The light here was dim, and instead of endless yellow walls, an anomaly appeared before me. The space seemed to break into 3 parts, offering 3 completely different paths. I slammed on the brakes, barely keeping from slipping on the slimy carpet. Behind me, in the corridor, the shadow of the creature was already stretching across the walls. The siren was howling so loudly that my nose started to bleed. I looked straight ahead. The first path, to the left, was a bright blue, plastic children's slide that was securely built right into the floor. It led somewhere into deep, impenetrable darkness, but a strange, freezing cold and the smell of fresh ozone drifted from it. The second path, dead center, was a heavy, massive metal door painted in a rich, blood-red color. It had no handle, but it was cracked open a few inches. A soft, warm light leaked out of it, and through the howling of the siren, I could barely hear the quiet, soothing melody of old jazz records. The third path, to the right, was a rough, broken hole in the wall. Beyond it began old concrete stairs leading down into the gloom. On the wall next to it, someone had hastily, crookedly scrawled in black marker, "Second floor. Run there." The roar behind me became unbearable. The creature flew into the hall. Its long, clawed fingers dug into the doorframe, smashing the drywall with a crash. The metal speakers on its head spun in my direction. It was preparing to pounce. I only have a second. A single second to make a decision that will either save me or destroy me. My heart is beating so fast that I can barely hear anything. I'm standing in front of these 3 paths, and I have no idea which one isn't a trap. I don't know if I'll survive, but if you are listening to this right now, if somehow this story has reached you, tell me, where do I run now? Down the children's slide, behind the red door, or down the concrete stairs?